Welcome, everyone. Once again, another week of AEW All Elite Zone, episode number 37. And it's good to be back as the wrestling world is on fire these days. And it's always a pleasure to be alongside my good friend, Adam, the bearded wonder. And how are you doing, sir? And good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you too. Yeah, no, it's a great week of wrestling right now, and it all started on Sunday. So I think we got a lot to talk about that. So I'm very excited.
And it's just it looks like for now, it's going to be us again, the dynamic duo. We're getting used to this. Remember, like last week, I was losing my spot because I wasn't used to having all these people in the podcast with us. So it's always a pleasure. And of course, we'll be talking about the pay-per-view, which is the background of Adam, as you can see, of AEW Dynasty, which took place in St. Louis, Missouri this past Sunday night. And there's a lot of good positive fanfare with this, and a lot of people are calling this probably one of the best pay-per-views they've seen in a while, especially from AEW and actually for all of wrestling right now. I think it was a fantastic crowd. I think the crowd was maybe about 6,700, but sounded like a 15,000 person arena with which is awesome. And I've always stated I'm a big fan of the crowd participation. I love that energy. I think it brings so much to it. I love the chants and just the excitement, and definitely the fans were ready for this one. Adam, what did you think of it?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think the crowd was really good. During 0 hour, they were still filling in. I think some of them were still in the corridors because I saw a lot of open seats, but I think they were just at merch booths, food stands, drink stands at that arena in St. Louis. It's a nice arena too. I think it sits about 24,000, and I want to say they sold about 16 to 18,000 seats last night. So it was a good turnout for what the size of the arena was. And I thoroughly enjoyed the whole show up and down. So
you think that was that big a crowd? Again, you might be right. I just was listening to some others, and they're like, "Oh, and that's they were saying it was under 10,000 in attendance because it was in a small arena that doesn't hold that." But obviously, maybe they're wrong.
I mean, I haven't been to St. Louis in a while, and I believe I have seen that arena that they've been in, and I could have sworn it was closer to 20,000, but it could be closer to 10 to 15. So, but it just looked like there were still a lot of people there during the whole show. Yeah. So it was a really good show, and crowd really, really was alive the entire pay-per-view, which was good to see.
Yeah, no, I agree. And no, it was awesome. And I thought they put on a good solid card. There was a lot of titles that were on the line. I don't know if there was too many duds on this. I mean, we're obviously going to talk about the highlights and how many good matches, and of course, we'll talk. There's a good handful of them to bring up, but I don't think overall there was too many duds. I mean, I guess some of the reactions are probably saying the most dud of the match was was Jericho and Hook. And they actually thought their match on Dynamite was better than what it was for this, and I heard some chants, I guess, for Jericho saying that Fozzy sucks, and they also started chanting "Go home."
So, they were also chanting "Please retire." That's what they were chanting. They were like, "Please retire." Like it was bad. I mean, as much as what Jericho has done, and I've said this multiple times on this podcast, I respect the hell out of Jericho. I love his career, but I think it is one of those times where he's like, he should probably take a back seat to being in the ring and actually help people backstage and as a coach, so that's just my feel of it.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, we've talked about this too, and I'm a huge Jericho fan and always has. And I love his work even outside of the ring. And I know he's got a humongous part with AEW anyway. So even if he doesn't wrestle, he's such a showman and he's part of it. He's going to be there. And again, I think some of this trickling to want to kind of get almost in that managerial role with Hook that was kind of brought up. I don't think that's the last of that we'll see. I mean, I definitely feel that he could. The way Don Callis has the family. Oh, actually, we've seen the Jericho. We've seen the Jericho Appreciation Society. What was their first name that they had when the group?
They were the
Oh my gosh, why can't you remember?
I know, it was right there on the tip of my tongue too. It was because they feuded with the Pinnacle.
Yeah,
And I can't
inner
remember the
circle,
name.
the inner circle.
Inner Circle, thank you.
Yes. Okay. Oh, yes. So again, so we know that Jericho likes to lead factions. I think he could be fine. I think he's could lead it kind of like a Don Callis, and step back. And I think people appreciate because people still like Jericho and they like his persona and they like on the mic. And I actually really enjoyed when he was doing some of the commentary. I think when he was doing some on Dynamite when he was kind of filling in, or that might have also been on Rampage too. I can't remember what show it was, but I don't mind. I don't mind him in that capacity. It must be it must be so hard to hear people chanting it. Please retire. When you got Billy Gunn in there, who looks like $1,000,000, right? What is he? Probably the same age. The guy looks like he's probably in some of the best shape of his life.
He's somewhere sitting. I want to say 50 something. Let me look. He is 60 actually. 60 years old. God. He's actually older than Jericho.
That is unbelievable.
Because Chris Jericho is actually
53.
So he's actually older than Jericho.
Yeah, I know. But so I'm not really sure what this does, where this goes. I think this was one of those matches. I think we all agreed if this was going to be on the pay-per-view, we probably would have not. Either of us probably would have picked Jericho to win because it, in our minds, probably didn't really make sense for him to have the FTW belt unless this is developing into some other side storyline, right? Because now I know that Taz was kind of involved, and he's going to be just pissed now because Jericho got his belt, obviously beat his kid up, and so I don't know what that's leading to, where this is going to go now. Where do you think that this little storyline goes?
I don't know. I have a couple of theories, and this is based on rumors and just news stories that I've read. You could go where FTW is finally retired and Chris Jericho is the one retired, being technically an ECW original. For him, he could technically say the FTW title meant a lot, but I'm going to officially retire. Or, he can go that way with the chance where they say, please retire, and he can come out and make it sound like he's about to retire. He says, I had a lot of thoughts, a lot of process, all this. My body has been pushed to the limits. This title meant everything to me to finally win something of my golden days. But I think those golden days are done. And tonight I announce to you that I officially retire the FTW belt. Like, that long pause will throw people off, and then he could retire the belt. But also the rumors I'm hearing is about Hook. There's been a lot of interest from WWE on Hook. Some people backstage of WWE, producers. I think some of the people from TKO also have noticed Hook as this young talent that they can bring over. I mean, you look at someone like Lexus King, or the Brian Pillman Jr. who came over to WWE. They had eyes on him. They brought him over. Someone like Hook, who is the son of Taz, who's one of the key SmackDown announcers during their prime, was an ECW original, was there when ECW got bought for WWE, and he stuck around with WWE. Excuse me. But I could see it going where, who knows, whether this be a sign of Hook being gone, or they try to continue the story of Chris Jericho with Taz involved. So you can go any route with it.
Yeah, it's interesting. No, I did hear someone say about, maybe is Hook heading to NXT? NXT, I guess, is NXT is WWE is starting to bring up some of those guys on the roster who are, they need to replace them on NXT. I've been surprised. Like, I do like Hook, but I don't think there's something that's missing that I don't really buy into it as much. Like, he's got his key moves, his kind of his I don't know, his personality. I'm kind of over it. Like, I want to see more than just German suplexes. I want to get a little more of the personality. I know they've done a great job with them and in creating that. But I think it's time for more, right? I think that the character needs to develop. He needs to now, embrace it. Unless, of course, he's the kind of guy, if he's going to keep that character, then I think he's the kind of guy that suits a manager who's the mouthpiece, right? So, but yeah, it'd be interesting. That would be strange. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised. I was actually a little surprised to hear that he's potentially being scouted or aid. I mean, WWE and NXT is interested in him. I mean, that's saying one thing. I mean, I always kind of felt like he's like a homegrown guy, right? That would be sticking around because again, AEW loves him and Tony Khan loves Hook. So kind of like why leave yet, right? I think there's a lot to it. And just because he loses the belt, shouldn't that fuel a guy instead of to just kind of riding off to the sunset? That this is supposed to be like a hard ass fighter. That he'd be like, hell's no, I'm getting my belt back, and that like you basically cheated to win. I'm not standing for that, right? So should be more what should happen, based on his character and how they're kind of pushing him as this, lone wolf, hard nosed guy, unless he really needs a break. Right. I know that too, that they do take belts off guys who genuinely need a bit of a rest. Right. So I don't know if that's the case. We don't always know all the full details with that. So I guess we'll find out. There's one, I guess, get your thoughts. And I think we both agree that this is the way it would go was Willow winning the TNT title off of Julia Hart.
TBS.
Oh, that's right. Yes. The TBS
She won the TNT title off Adam Copeland.
Right. Hey, you never know. Stranger things have happened. But yeah, I guess this was a pretty quick match. We all agreed, I think, that this was going to be the outcome. And, this looks obviously the way it's set up, for Mercedes and Willow. How do you feel about this potential title reign? Do you think it's more of a placeholder, kind of a makeup that kind of match never got to happen originally? Or do you think they're going to keep the belt on her for quite a while?
Well, here's the weird thing. And kudos to Julia Hart. It was the shorter matches on the card. It was the shortest match on the card. I think just clocking in just over 6 minutes. But Julia Hart was dealing with an injury, and she still went into this match. So kudos to her to wrestle through an injury. And, she did actually bring some prestige to that belt. I love her entrances with that belt during her House of Black music and all that stuff. I think she really elevated a little bit of, going from Jade to Chris Statlander, then to Julia, and now to Willow. I think it's a good transition of people that they've had. Unfortunately, the way this TBS title is setting up is obviously Mercedes Moné. She really, didn't really get her run with the New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong Woman belt, losing it to Willow. So obviously we all agreed that story was going to continue. But I think the wild card in this little matchup between Willow and Mercedes is Chris Statlander. We have to remember Chris Statlander was there when, Willow got hurt before that mixed tag match. She was there, comforted her, but we didn't see her a lot during it. And then the lights went out on that interview with Mercedes. We don't know who attacked Mercedes. So there's still a wild card, and I keep going back to it, but that little exclusive video of Trent Beretta getting in Chris Statlander's ear, after he turned heel. So I think Chris Statlander's a wild card here. So when we get to Double or Nothing, I think we're going to see a shocker of Chris Statlander. Now, I don't know if it's going to be Chris Statlander turning on Willow and letting Mercedes win it, or Chris Statlander just attacking both women during the match. You could see it where they're both down in the ring at Double or Nothing. The lights go out, and they come back on, and Chris Statlander stand there instead of like a Julia Hart or a Sky Blue. It's Chris Statlander who clotheslines both women, causes the double disqualification. That can set you up for a triple threat match between the three, and you don't put the belt on Mercedes so quickly, even though I feel that's the route we're going. But at some point, I do believe Mercedes is going to win that TBS title. But there's so many different ways you can go with it, and the story just has so many layers that they can go with.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think our chats about Mercedes going heel, I think that we were talking about that and some of the things she's always been kind of doing, these heelish behaviors, but they couldn't, right away throw her in as a heel because again, there's such a big, excitement for her to arrive. So they kind of let the baby face and the thank yous and glad to be backs they have to let that simmer down. But you can definitely see the interruptions, the mannerisms are very heelish, right? So I can see that it would be interesting to see. Do you see? I I still think I think it'd be a good team if you are going to do a huge turn. I think if you're going to do a heel turn with Statlander, her turning and doing the chair shot, on Willow would be the best way to turn her. Kind of like when the Shield did it, right? And the famous Seth Rollins, the chair shot on the back, right, of Moxley, to really set that emotion. But I almost see, for some reason, I still almost feel that Stokely is still going to be involved. That Stokely will then manage her, and I actually don't. Think. I think that you could have her almost helping Mercedes, and then those two being kind of a team, kind of like the Wardlow to the MJF a little bit, right? Because you got the CEO who's all flashy, and then you've got the power of Statlander, and then you've got Stokely Hathaway, right? Who's like the diabolical, manager. So I just think I would like maybe see that. That would be a really good heel team. Again, we need more of these solid female tag teams if we're ever going to have a tag team champions at some point. So this one's kind of interesting. We'll see. This one's been a little bit a slow burn when it comes to Willow and Chris Statlander. So we'll see what happens. So this is going to be interesting. Not 100% on what I don't find it as obvious, I guess, in this regard, right? Which is good, right? Because again, it keeps us talking about it. But we'll see about that. There was one match I didn't get to see too much of, and Adam, you can maybe elaborate on this. I saw some of the highlights and just some of the reactions. When you've got Pac and Okada. Again, this could be another one. This could be another main event match as well. I think what the crowd was cheering, like already, like this is awesome. Even like, again, like I'm sure this is awesome chance for happening all night. But we're big fans of Pac for sure. And what was your take on this one?
I love this match. I think it was the right match to start the pay-per-view with. You get the crowd going with one of your newly signed acquisitions in Okada, defending his newly won Continental Championship against Pac. Pac, who's basically a day one guy with AEW. This was a great way to start the pay-per-view. We got the crowd ready. It was a good slow pace at the beginning of the match, and then it really picked up. And you could see, oh, sorry, I had something on my finger. But you could see that both guys were meshing very well, and they were pacing the match very well. This match actually clocked in at almost 20 minutes. It was like 20, 21 minutes. So it was a good, decent long match to let both guys cook in the match, both guys highlighting. Obviously, Okada going after Pac's neck because he's had neck problems, and then Pac targeting, the arm for the Rainmaker. So they went back and forth. And obviously, the end of it with Okada retaining, but the crowd getting behind Pac. That was something special. That they getting behind him, how they did with MJF saying he's our dirtbag, or he's our, they were doing that at the end of the match, calling Pac he's our bastard. That they were basically chanting that. They were like, he's our bastard, and like they were basically giving him a standing ovation because Pac is. I mean, the stuff this guy's doing. I mean, he's a very talented person. How WWE dropped the ball on him, I have no idea. But AEW is running with him, and he's doing great. I mean, he's already an international champion. He was actually the first double champion. Well, not the first, but that was Kenny Omega. But he was like the second person to hold two belts at the same time. That was the international one and the trios title. So the guy puts in the work. So just to him to get that admiration at the end was really great. And just so cool to see Okada, wrestling in AEW as an AEW wrestler.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. I kind of feel you kind of forget about those runs that Pac had the belt actually, and I know because of his injuries that it always feels like when he gets a great momentum, then something happens, and then he's got to start all over again. But people just love him, and when you said. I think he did a great job. I mean, the fact when he left the Neville character in WWE, and as soon as he was just like, I'm done, I don't care. I'll go over to Japan. He started right away with the Pac character. I guess he started doing the Bastard back when he was, remember they had that 205 Live and he was,
Mhm.
the king or whatever that was the beginning of that. And then it was nice when he got let go or he decided to leave and went to Japan and did the independence that he was just able to just really push it. He ran with that character almost like that's me, that's my character, and I'm still running with it. And he's still doing it today, and he's amazing. So do you see him? Do you see a belt on him by the end of the year?
Maybe. I do. Just based on the reaction he got from the match and just the work he did with Okada. I think we'll see him with the title. I don't know which one. I don't know if they'll go back to giving him the All American or the All Atlantic. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, no, it's the international. I keep calling it the All
Yeah,
Atlantic. I
and
mean,
the
they might go
international
back to put him
continental.
in the international,
Yeah.
title match and get it from Roderick. Who knows? I'd like to see him, but that's on AEW. AEW's got to make that decision. I'd love to see Pac win one more individual title in AEW before he decides to either go back to WWE or do independence or just officially just leave the ring and do whatever he needs to do.
Mm.
So, but I do want to commemorate both those guys in that match because that was a great opening match. It was really cool. Okada was eating it up because he's supposed to be the heel, but that crowd was so behind him. They were cheering him, and then he was going to do the Rainmaker thing, and instead he flips off the camera and the crowd to get that heel reaction because he understood. It's like they're
Yeah.
cheering me, but I'm the bad guy, so I'm gonna make them boo me, and that's what he did. And I gotta tip my hat to that. So
No, that's great. And I really feel the AEW is that attitude era, right? Where it's cool to cheer for the bad guys, right? And it's hard to get over because we're kind of like the NWO when you're so over. Like no matter what you do, you can be the biggest heel. But again, people are just buying into it, and people just uh, appreciate good wrestlers and good characters, no matter what, they're bad or good. So where do you see this as? Okay, so right now, so this is the first. I think I can see like this being like at least a 2 out of 3, or at least creating this bit of a rivalry here, especially with I think. I mean, the crowd reaction, the match itself was an amazing match. Why not continue it, right? And again, and then that's just gonna does Pac lose again, and does he lose again, right? Or does it eventually come to the fact that he wins? It'd be interesting. So I think there's definitely more. I don't think AEW is stupid not to recognize, like, hey, I think these guys have a couple more matches in them. Maybe we'll develop this storyline so then you can make bigger, more important matches as well, right? So because where do you go from here? You just like that magic. Do you just split it, right? Or do you work with it? So I guess we'll see how that goes. But I guess we can talk about probably God, there's so many matches on here to talk about this week. But I guess let's talk about the new tag team champions and the ladder match. And again, we predicted, we were both on the same page that we did feel that the EVPs, the Young Bucks, would win the titles since they put over Sting and Darby for Sting's last match. We knew this is the way it was going to go, and I think it was you that brought up a little interference. I think wasn't that you last week? You said that.
there was a few of us that said that we all
Yeah,
that like it was myself and Connor both agreed that we might see a Jack Perry interference.
yeah,
Connor and I
and
both mentioned it, and we said that, and I think I even brought up that his obligations in New Japan was pretty much up anyways. Which is weird because he was on a sub Bullet Club group called House of Torture, which is a faction over there in New Japan. But now he comes back over here. But then when he leaves, he threw the 3. Most people thought he was saying, "Oh, that's they're 3-time champions." No, that's the E for the elite. So it's basically him saying, "I'm joining the elite." So basically he's going to become the 4th member. So obviously you'll have Okada, then the Young Bucks, and now you'll have Jack Perry. And this match, I mean, it was a good 4th match for FTR and Young Bucks.
Mhm.
And I loved it all. I loved every single minute of the match. I think all four guys delivered. They did the spots they need to, and even some of the spots looked rough, but they meant for them to look rough, and that's what it was supposed to look like. It was supposed to look like a train wreck because the build to this match was basically surrounding about All In from last year. So just to get that built up and the train wreck, and then obviously the Jack Perry coming back, because obviously you built that already in with the footage that you leak on Dynamite. It just a compelling story. I know a lot of people hate it that they included that footage and all, but it was what they needed to do, and the reaction of Jack Perry being unmasked, mind you, in a Sting mask that he returned in,
Mhm.
turned in a
Right.
Sting mask, and the security moving it slowly and showing the mask, but then backing up to let the reveal happen and then taking him out. Kudos to security to playing their part too, because they knew who it was. They rushed it and they're like, "Oh no, show who it is." Whereas if anybody remembers when Dexter Lumis showed up on Raw, it was right after an AJ Styles match, and it was when they were going off the air. They pulled it, and then they pulled his head back, and it showed him as he was dragging away, and everybody's like, "Wait, was that so and so?" Like
Mhm. Mhm.
this in this match was so well executed of showing it was Jack Perry. So the fact that he's back with all the momentum he had in New Japan, and even the reaction he got at Riot City, that pay-per-view that he did with New Japan, it's only a matter of time before he gets keeps that reaction going in AEW.
No, I agree. I liked the way he came back in the Sting match. I liked how he was going to be part of the Elite, and it makes sense as also with his return like this, why they also showed that footage, right? Because everyone's like, why do they need to do this? Why? Well, again, they built it into a storyline. They wanted to kind of show, it helps why he's part of the Elite. Like they were all there in the back, so it kind of sets it up for like to make sense a little bit more about why, right? And why the EVPs wanted to show this and to support. So it'd be interesting. So I don't hate it. I'm excited to see kind of a new Jack Perry character. I don't mind him being a heel as long as he's not doing the Jack Perry he was doing right before he left with that classical music that just didn't seem to fit. So I'm hoping it'd be interesting. Is he going to wear more of the suit? Is he going to be the clean cut to match the rest of the guys? Because again, that has to be. I think that's the uniform because that's the douche. That's a real. That emphasizes the douchebag, douchebagness of the group, right? Because they're all being abusing their power. So do they put him in almost like a managerial, almost like how they were like the managers or they in a role to see anyways, we'll see what happens. But it's interesting comeback. What happens to you? What do you think happens to FTR at this point?
I think they got to get a refresh. I know they just signed new contracts that are, I think Connor said, are till 2026, 2027. Can't remember, but they're like a 2 to 3 year now. I think they go back to square one. I think you have to have them work their way through back the ranks of tag teams after losing this match. I think you give them a little bit of a break. It might have been part of their contracts too that they do this match, take a little bit of a break, and then come back. Give them a couple months off. Maybe they come back at All In, or they come back and just make an appearance at Double or Nothing. But you give them a few weeks, maybe a few months off, and they work their way back to the rankings because there's so many other tag teams there that they can kind of build up. I'd like to see Private Party get built back up, and obviously the infantry. I'd like to see them being backed up. I believe you have
Or Top Flight.
Top Flight. They got to get built back. You got House of Black. Obviously we'll probably be talking about that. Maybe going over that trios match. On this card. But you look at some people like a Brody King and a Buddy Matthews breaking off and maybe joining the tag team ranks and possibly going after tag team titles. So you got a lot to work with. So I think with FTR, I think they take a little bit of a break and then come back stronger.
Yeah, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised. These guys are workhorses. They have I don't think anyone would deny that they do deserve a break. They put their bodies on the line. We've seen them; these guys take bump after bump after bump, and that was very evident in the with the ladder match. It actually is painful to watch. I mean, because you just think every time these things, where they're bouncing around, my God, you know what? They definitely deserve a break. And like you said, there are a lot of really good tag teams that just need a little more cultivating as well. To go along with even the trios division as well. We've talked about there's a lot there to work with. So if some of the top guys have to step back a little bit, to make room for some other guys to come up, then so be it. And it'd be a well-deserved break there. But again, no surprise. And we'll see how long or what happens now with the gold, right? Because that's 3 belts. They get the tag belts and they have the Continental belt, right? So it'll be interesting what happens next. If Jack Perry comes on, what happens there? Are they going to have all the members have gold? And what belt is he going to be going after? Again, remember he left with the FTR? No, I mean the FTW belt, right? Because where that kind of, he had it when he was leaving, and just shit hit the fan, and then boom, they kind of just dropped that, right? So, I mean, could he get that belt? Get that back? I mean,
I don't know. I think what they're building towards is maybe an unlikely trio to fight the Elite. I'm looking at maybe a Pac. I don't know if he'll join back up with Penta and Ray as Death Phoenix. He may look to the outside. If he gets healthy enough and they built it very well, you could see a returning Kenny Omega side with Pac. And then obviously you bring on, the Golden Lovers or whatever their tag name was with Omega and Ibishi. I think you bring that in and you bring all 3 of those guys together to kind of duel the 3 champions in the Elite. But then again, you're looking at the wild card of Jack Perry. Who do you bring on for that? Well, who better than a former friend, former tag team partner, Luchasaurus? Now, we haven't even talked about them for a while because none of them were on the pay-per-view. The not the hierarchy. I wasn't going to say the hierarchy. The patriarch. The patriarch. Yeah, the patriarch. Yeah. We have not seen Christian, Mama Wayne, Nick Wayne, or Luchasaurus since he lost that TNT title. So who's not to say that Luchasaurus just somehow breaks away from that group and joins with those 3 guys to kind of combat this new Elite that they have. Make Luchasaurus a face again. He was getting a good reaction that one day where after Revolution, where Christian thanked himself and Nick Wayne, but not Luchasaurus, but the crowd was chanting Luchasaurus and not Kill Switch. So you could turn him face again and have him join forces with Omega, Ibishi, and Pac to have that group of 4 kind of combat the new Elite. So, I mean, you could go different ways with this. I think this is all just building up to when Kenny's healthy to come back.
Do you think, and I know there's another storyline that hasn't been finished yet, but, the fact that, say, if Kenny comes back and, and somehow realigns himself back with Hangman, who are both kicked out of the Elite, to have the Young Bucks versus Kenny, because they've done that. Remember that it was almost like a friendly match they had. So this would not be friendly. They were getting the point. Like this would be like a real brawl. But I know it seems to be if Hangman comes back, I guess most fans are thinking that he would be thrown into the a bit of a championship storyline again, right? Now that Swerve is the champion, which we'll talk about in a minute. Or do you kind of pull them away? Are people tired of the Swerve Hangman storyline and feud? Could that take a break? Could you start something fresh? Say with a Kenny Omega, and if they were going to have a Pac, could be if it's Pac and Kenny and Hangman, versus the Elite. All right, there's the history with all of them there, but. Who knows? I don't know. Would you even see it as a possibility, or do you think that they'd throw Hangman back into the storyline with Swerve now?
Well, again, this all comes from the likeliness of Kenny's health. So if they do that way, if they do bring Paige back and Kenny's healthy and comes back, then I could see them changing the storyline up to where Hangman can go back with Kenny Omega and kind of fight this new elite. But again, they had so much fire going with that Swerve Page storyline, and you've already shown us the full heel turn of Adam Page, of him basically hitting the crutch against Swerve's back before Revolution, him basically saying, I'll do everything in my power so you don't win that title, and then tapping out at Revolution just as Swerve looked like to stop it. Obviously it all based on this. But I do believe that they could possibly do that. And again, that goes to the unlikely alliance of a Pac, since he's got history with the Elite, everything like that. Him and Death Triangle for the trios titles, but the unlikely, partnership of him and a Kenny Omega returning to where Page shows up to be returning. And then, like I said, another wild card, which is Luchasaurus. You can have those four guys as well involved with a good feud with the Elite. So again, you just got to see where the health of Kenny Omega is, because that's basically what it comes down to. Because Kenny Omega, probably would love to run a good storyline of feuding with his former friends, the Young Bucks, and actually someone like an Okada. But with Page, it's very hard. It's very difficult based on what you've built him up as almost turning a full heel with him and Swerve. So him aligning with Kenny as a face, don't know if the crowd would get behind that, and you would have to realize the blowback reaction you would get from that if Page is paired up with the Elite again. So I think right now you kind of just got to let it ride out and see what you can do with Page. I do believe they may run back Page and Swerve. I mean, that was just hot when it was going. So
yeah, because there's feel like a little unfinished business, there, even though we've seen them fight and do everything possible to each other. So I'm not sure what would be left. All I can think of is in a steel cage, right? Like almost like a Hell in a Cell type match, something like that. If they're going to keep on upping the ante, kind of like the point of Kenny Omega coming back and the timing, because when he left due to the injury, I mean he was like ready to really working that tag team, the Golden Jets, right, with Jericho. So do you think they'll just bypass that, or do you think they'll address that? Because again, Jericho kind of spoke like, hey, we're not going to do this, but because Kenny's out, and so it didn't seem like it. So do you think they revisit it, and bring them back, or do you kind of say, you know what, let's just part and forget about that storyline? It's too much time has passed.
You got to move forward. I mean, basically you had to, for as long as how Kenny's been out for with his health issue. You got to move on, because now you've got Jericho in kind of a storyline with Hook and Taz. So you got that storyline going. You've got the Young Bucks and Okada and now Jack Perry kind of basically being the new running elite in the company. Then you've got Pac, who still probably has unfinished business with Okada. And, again, I don't know if you go back to the Golden Jets. I think you just got to move past that. And again, I keep saying it, I keep repeating myself, but it's important to know it's on Kenny. I mean, Kenny, if they don't feel like this, I keep forgetting the name of the thing that he has, something vitis or something like that.
Diverticulitis or something?
Yeah,
was it
diverticulitis or something like that? It's very hard to come back from. It's a very serious condition. And the fact that he wrestled through it before he got really serious, like, that says a lot. So it's going to take some recovery time. And I hate bringing him up, but you look at someone like a Joe Anoa, aka Roman Reigns, who had the leukemia. He disappeared for a year because of the leukemia. He disappeared because of the COVID, all this stuff. So he disappeared for a year, and then he came back. So he was gone for a year, and for Kenny, it's pretty much almost been a year. So, but we don't know the extent. We haven't heard anything about his condition. Nobody has shared anything on his condition. I know Tony Khan has mentioned that, he's hoping he gets better. He's heard word that, Kenny's improving, but he hasn't said if he's 100% or not. So again, it just goes back to see where Kenny's going to stand, whether he's going to be able to come back to the ring or not.
Yeah, I really hope so. I mean, I guess if anyone could come back, it would be Kenny. I mean, his dedication, his you know, his physical, his physique, his health. You know, again, I know, but he's one of these guys. He's a workhorse, and obviously he pushed himself to the absolute limit and had to take a break. Right, this guy would continue. He's kind of like a Brian Danielson. These guys will wrestle until they die, right? So you need to really almost step in and say, no, man, you're done for a while. You need to get fixed up, or else you'll never come back. So we really hope that he does, because again, he's such a great talent. So, but yeah, I guess you never know, right? And you can't base storylines around it until you have definite answers, because there's no point, because you can't start a story and then we see how when things fizzle out, right? So yeah, I guess we'll see what happens at that point. But I guess we can talk about probably what some are calling could be match of the year. Another, I guess you could almost call it another main event on this pay-per-view. There's a lot of anticipation, and the crowd was really ready for this one. And I think there was the "this is awesome" chance even before these guys even touched each other. Yeah, Adam, how did you rank this match, and how did you enjoy it?
You're talking about the Ospreay Bryan Danielson match, obviously.
Yes, sir.
There's no words for it. It was just pure wrestling magic. I don't know how you can explain it. It was just that feeling. Even before the match started, with fans chanting, "This is awesome," or "Holy shit," and "This is wrestling," and "Fight forever." The crowd was just so behind it, and both guys just really did so well in it, especially with Bryan, considering this is going to be his last full year wrestling. This was a dream match for him. I mean, this match went, I think I predicted this match can go 30, 40 minutes. It actually went 31 and a half minutes. So my prediction was pretty much spot on last week when I said this match can go about 30 to 40 minutes long and it would be great. And it did. It went on 31 minutes. So it was in between what I said. But both guys just showed the technicality that they both put into it. The ground game of it, the mind games that Bryan Danielson was doing with Ospreay, the high flying Ospreay was doing, but also just the hard hitting. The elbows, the clotheslines, the drop kicks, the holds, the submissions that Bryan Danielson was putting Ospreay in, and Ospreay doing this, like just the hand, like, nah, this ain't happening, bruv. So it was such a good, for what it was. The build was there, and the match was the payoff. And honestly, this was probably nominee for match of the year. This match excelled what I expected to be. I mean, there were so many spots when I went like this, or, oh my God, like that was amazing. I'm trying to remember a few spots too. Obviously all the dives on the outside by Ospreay, but also some of the knee hits from Bryan Danielson to Ospreay. You thought that was it. Every time they'd go to the top rope and do some stuff, it just. And I think at one point Bryan Danielson flipped, did the like the tiger suplex backwards, and it looked like, or it could have been Ospreay to Bryan Danielson. I can't remember who did it, but it looked like, he dropped him, but he bounced safely if you watch it. But they did it so well that it looked like he could have hurt his head.
Is that when it was arms? He had his arms back like this, and
yes, he had his arms locked, and he did that. Yeah, no, it was, the spot was amazing. The spot was sick. And then even at the end, after he hit the Tiger Driver on Bryan Danielson, it was safe. But the way he landed, Bryan Danielson sold that he landed unsafely and was just holding his neck and doing this. And it was brilliant. It is brilliant storytelling, and I'll tell you why. And we were just talking about this before we went live. The backstage footage of Ospreay walking with Bryan Danielson, they don't show that if it's real. That storyline right there. Also at the press conference, Ospreay was very remorseful on that move. He said, "I think because I hurt Bryan that way, I'm going to retire that move." So that's also part of the story, that he's retiring a move. You see that a lot in WWE, where moves are banned because they're dangerous. AEW took a different route where, like, I'm just going to retire it. I don't want to hurt any more people. And this is a build, because now you're looking at it where Ospreay is showing sympathy, even though he's a badass, but he's showing sympathy to someone he respects in a Bryan Danielson. And again, the way you listen to that commentary where he did the hidden blade, and they're like, Ospreay didn't know his neck was hurting. He saw Daniel Bryanson get up with his head up and he went for it, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, this is story. This is story. This is a story I'm here for, because now you've got the BCC, Blackpool Combat Club, and Don Callis family. Who's in the middle of all of it is Will Ospreay. Because now on Dynamite, you had Moxley come out, mention Will Hobbs. So there's a feud there within those two groups. Now you got this with Ospreay showing concern. And even Don Callis on commentary says he shouldn't feel bad. He's showing a weakness, Ospreay. There's some tension there. There's some tension there. And they're going to bring it up, where Don Callis can maybe say, Will, you got to stop showing.
He's getting soft.
You're soft. Yeah. Like, this is the Don Callis. We're strong, blah, blah, blah. We run this. That's where you get the separation of Ospreay away from the Don Callis family. And then you can have the BCC feud with Don Callis without Ospreay, and maybe even without Bryan Danielson. I'd like to see Bryan Danielson and Will Ospreay kind of team up a couple of times, do some tag team matches. But there's so many layers. Again, I mentioned it, layers to this story and this feud, to bring in these two groups to make something happen, because the BCC needs a new group to kind of butt heads with. And I think the Don Callis family is the perfect group for them to butt heads with.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. There is a lot of layers, and there's such good wrestlers between these guys. Like, you get them either in singles, trios, tag matches, 4-on-4. Like, there is enough talent in there. It's insane. So I think there's so many things you could do with it, and I 100% agree. I think it's time. I think the BCC needs a real good fight, because they kind of dwindle a little bit. They're kind of doing this and kind of doing that. They're kind of together. They're kind of doing the individual. So I like when they are solid, right? So that'll be interesting. Yeah, right. And I think, like you said, it's really setting things up for Will Ospreay to, leave the Don Callis family, or them almost kick him out, which would be unheard of because he's too soft. You're not the man it used to be. Right. And almost be like, what? You're kicking out like the best wrestler in the world because he doesn't fit in the Don Callis family anymore. So that'll be interesting to see what the comments are from Don tomorrow night. So that'll be good. You're totally right. At first, I didn't think it was a word at first, because I was just more like, oh my God, holy cow, did he really hurt himself? The way of doing it, and seeing him and, taking the back. But then, as we're talking, and after I was thinking, like, if Bryan was really hurt, why was it only one trainer and Will Ospreay carrying him to the back? Where is the rest of the guy? There's no anyone else on staff to help who's in the back, who helps, with this. Just one little trainer, and Will's the one helping, move this guy who could potentially have a spinal injury, right? So it's interesting, yes, and I can see why they did it, to build up this character of the remorse, and that Will Ospreay, even if he did this, he really had no intention. Again, he really respects Bryan Danielson, and that would never happen. So yeah, it's a great way to push him as a babyface because of the remorse he's feeling. And and if you look at the two kind of parallel careers in terms of, and I know Jericho is older than Bryan Danielson, but they're both kind of said, hey, we both know they're on their downswing of their careers. Danielson a little bit earlier, but again, because of some of those serious injuries he's had over his time, maybe it's fine. It's, he just can't compete at that level anymore. But to have that kind of run, and like you said, if it is his last full year of wrestling, the fact that he is having matches of the year in potentially his last year in wrestling, like, talk about go out with a bang. And I know that's the same mentality that you can see that in the push of Christian and Adam Copeland as well, right? Like, hey, we're getting up there. This is our last run. And they're going all out, and they can still compete at high level, and they're still in great shape. Even a Billy Gunn, like at 60 years old, these guys are still having some of the best matches they've had, which is amazing, right? So it is amazing that some of these guys are getting that opportunity to ride out to the sunset. Sting, again, we had the opportunity. I mean, I don't know if that's an AEW thing that they have such a respect for the business and respect for what these guys have accomplished and what they mean to the organization and the rest of the team and what they're doing for the young and up and comers, right? Maybe a lot of that. There's a lot of gold there that they really respect in terms of the experience and what they're able to hand down to some of these guys that are coming up. So it's it'd be interesting to see what happens here. If it is a work, is this an opportunity for Bryan Danielson to sit out for a bit? But he feels like he kind of sat out for a while. He feels like this was his run. So does he take a break? I mean, are they making this up to be something serious? So it's going to be, months. I don't know. What do you think of them, with that type of injury and what they could potentially be having in terms of Danielson being out and length of time?
Well, I see this as kind of, I'll go back to my point of I'd like to see Danielson and Ospreay team together. I kind of feel they'll go the route of Ospreay feeling bad, and like the next coming weeks, like Don Callis starts berating him, saying stop being weak. And at some point, I want to say before Double or Nothing, they'll probably get Bryanson like a couple of weeks off, and then right as the build to Double or Nothing, Don Callis family kind of jumps Will Ospreay and kind of beat him up, kind of like a jump out, like beat him out of the group. And then you hear Bryan Danielson's music come, and he comes out, and Blackpool Combat Club comes out to kind of defend Ospreay. And Double or Nothing, you may have a tag match of Bryan Danielson and Will Ospreay against two of the members of Don Callis family. So I think you can kind of build it that way. So it all depends on where they. I mean, we never know. We kind of always say you just got to trust the process and trust the storyline and hope that it plays out. So where they go with this Bryan Danielson thing, obviously it's going to be more of a beneficial thing for Ospreay with his storyline going forward with the Don Callis family, with Bryan Danielson and the BCC still getting involved somehow. Because obviously tomorrow night you've got the title defense of the IGWP, championship with Moxley and Hobbs. So obviously both groups are going to get involved with each other then, but you got to also involve Ospreay in that too, and kind of get him something set up for Double or Nothing. I mean, he just had a banger of a match with Bryan Danielson at Dynasty. So Double or Nothing, you got to get him back on the card too. I mean, you've got to get Will Ospreay on every pay-per-view card, but you've got to build a story there for that match to make sense.
Yeah, you know what? No, a lot of good points there, and I don't disagree. So it's going to be interesting to see, again, this next, I think Dynasty did a great job of kind of, putting a bow on some of these, kind of feuds. But I think it's also opened up more storylines to, it's created storylines from this as well. So I think it was a great pay-per-view in terms of that regard, in terms of, what it did, some great matches, great showcases. And of course, we did make a little more history with the main event. And actually and it was kind of interesting that there was two bits of history that went on in the match as well. Not only did with the first African American and Strickland becoming the AEW champion, but also the referee. I think it was also they said, "Oh, it's his first championship match again." So it's kind of a fitting, right? You had, I guess, like the first black referee to do a championship match. And then you had it with, winning is the first African American to win an AEW heavyweight championship. So that was kind of a bit, so I thought I liked that bit of history. It was interesting. And I guess you would put up with, I guess Willow would have been, but no, I guess Jade Cargill was the first, was the champion, and she was the first black female champion for that belt. But no, I thought this was a great match. I know we're both big Samoa Joe fans. And we would have liked to see Joe continue on. I think we could have both agree that we could definitely see more of Joe as champion. We think he did a great job. I mean, I keep on saying we, it's like I'm speaking for you, but I know you're a big fan there. I thought Joe put on a great match. He really built up this story. I think Joe's still got a lot of him in him as well. He's a guy that he's been around, and maybe could be potentially on a bit of a downswing, but I think he's great. I think he's got some more in him as well. I thought it was a great match, and we both, as we both predicted, that Swerve would win this. Now, I guess from here, where do we see? I mean, are we going to move in a different direction with, who's up next for Swerve? Are we going to see something new? Are we going to see something regurgitated? Are we going to see Adam Page? But first, I guess I'll get your opinion and on the championship match overall.
Well, you mentioned history. Another piece of history in that match was the robe that Prince Nana draped over Swerve as he was walking out. Anybody who knows Ring of Honor and the history of Ring of Honor, when the Embassy started in Ring of Honor in like the early mid 2000s, and Prince Nana was basically one of the founding members of the Embassy. One of his other original members, and pretty much his golden child, was a man named Hurricane John Walters, who wore that robe a lot during his entrances. I believe that's who it was. But let me see here. So when Prince Nana, I'm reading all this history right now, he formed the Embassy, and under his management, John Walters would wear that robe to the ring, and basically, I think it was, because I don't know if they mentioned that he wore it. Yeah, he did wear it. Yeah. So it was John Walters wore the original. So I thought that was cool. But the match itself was great. The storyline kind of builds itself for now Swerve being, not just the hunter of the title, but now being the hunted. And so there's so many possibilities. Obviously, you still got the storyline of Adam Cole, who we saw Dynasty after that international match, ended up walking. So they surprised everybody and showed Adam Cole walking to the ring. And if anybody noticed, he kind of gave Wardlow a glance. So, but they're still evolving around him, still chasing the title. Obviously, we talked about it before, the Adam Page coming back and reigniting his feud with Swerve. You still have Samoa Joe, who possibly wants to reinvoke a rematch for his title. You could have a returning MJF coming back for the title that he was screwed out of. Obviously, for some reason, Wardlow still plays a part in that title based on the glance that Adam Page had gave him. There's so many stories you can go there. And again, it's all based on where they want to go. And I had mentioned on the live reaction Sunday, I wasn't on it, but I commented on the live reaction we had here that now this is a jump point for them to get something going, keep the momentum going from this pay-per-view, because now they've got something really nice here. They've got great potential of keeping this story going and keeping the product going strong. Let's move past the BS that we did last a couple of weeks ago with showing the footage, blah, 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 and all that stuff and living in the past, and move forward. Let's make this AEW era into something new. And this Dynasty kind of built that. And actually, Swerve said that on the press conference, saying, we're building a dynasty here. Now is the time to mend those words and make them mean something and have AEW go forward with good product.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's going to be exciting. It's an exciting time. Like I said, it's a bit of a changing of the guard, so to speak. So I think there's a lot of good storylines. For the amount of hate mail that AEW gets, I think they've done a great job of bringing a lot of great talent in. I mean, every week after week, we just sit there and come up with dream matches constantly. right? There's so many good combinations that haven't been utilized yet, right? So I'm excited, to see what they'll produce, especially this year as they approach, for Wembley, which is going to be, kind of the AEW's WrestleMania, so to speak. So, we're expecting to see some really big matches there. But I just wanted to, I guess, touch on, which was kind of a surprise. And I didn't see it coming, and I don't know if you did, but did you have any inkling about Matt Hardy moving over and then showing up in TNA on their
No.
pay-per-view this past weekend?
I had no shock of it whatsoever. His contract was up. He was basically a free agent. And I mean, he actually got so over with that character in TNA. TNA was so kind to him for for parts of his career that just seemed fitting that for him to go up in TNA. I loved it. I loved his return. Obviously, it's just buying time until Jeff Hardy's contract is up to where they can reunite again, maybe in TNA. People are saying WWE, but I'm like, WWE right now is kind of busy with a lot of other stuff that I don't know if they would go back to it. Plus, both of those guys are kind of on the tippy toe end of their careers as well. Both with Matt Hardy's like age and all his injuries, and then Jeff's, if he can keep his personal problems on the side and stay healthy as well. So I think TNA, both of them found a second life in TNA. And I will say that about Jeff too, because Jeff Hardy, he did have that moment with Sting where he was just completely out of it in their match at that pay-per-view, but he still found a second life in TNA and with Brother Nero. So I think with those two being back in TNA, I think it's a perfect place for them to kind of settle down and do whatever they want to do. But also you got to remember, maybe they don't want to sign big contracts. Matt still got his family. I believe Jeff has his family. So it's like they're getting to that tier end where they're like, we just kind of want to be free agents and kind of do our thing. Kind of like what Matt Cardona is doing. And Matt Cardona is not signed to a major promotion. He's just going everywhere, and hopefully he recovers because he actually just had shoulder injury. So, quick recovery to him because he's one of my favorite independent wrestlers right now. So, but I think right now I'm not shocked at all. Matt Hardy be showing up in TNA. And I actually wanted to touch base on something on Dynasty, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah.
We only had 2 women's matches, but the women's title match, so underrated. A good story there. There's still layers to that. Just the build of it, and then the involvement of Deonna Purrazzo, and just all that being involved. There's layers to that. And then the press conference was very interesting with Timeless Toni Storm. She had mentioned Nikki Bella. I don't know if by name, but she said Nikki. And she said something about Nikki Bella couldn't do something with a vagina or something like that, wash a vagina. She did something really good. She was just so good at this press conference. And then they mentioned that Mariah May is number 4 in the rankings, and she just left the conference. So her character is getting more and more like down there. It's almost like she's falling into her starlet phase of her character. There she was like the movie star and the big screen hero and all that, and the A-list actor. Now she's kind of fallen into the washed up starlet who's kind of like fading in the back, and it's because of this match that she had with Thunder Rosa. And so I kind of am excited to see where they go with Timeless Toni Storm as champion. And I was kind of hoping someone would show up at the end of that match, show up on the stage, like a returning Jamie Hayter or, Britt Baker. But maybe they show up on TV. The ratings would jump if they show up on TV apart from a pay-per-view. And the announcers made something weird, even Excalibur said it says, who can beat Toni Storm? Can anyone beat Toni Storm? This is pretty much gearing up for a return of a Britt Baker or Jamie Hayter, or maybe both. So I will say what they're doing with the women's division right now. I know we harp on it a little bit too, because we want to see it succeed. I think they're going in the right direction when it comes to the women's title picture, not TBS title, but the women's world title picture right now. I think they're building something, and I'm very excited to see where it goes. And that's basically what I wanted to touch on for that.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, and thanks for bringing that up because again, I know it's she is still very entertaining. She's still an intriguing character, still done well, and you're right. I think there's still room to build with her. Now, do you see a potential, triple threat match build up between her and Thunder Rosa and Diana? I mean, because they keep on kind of alluding to stuff with Diana and Thunder Rosa. Are they, because they're supposed to be kind of still baby faces, but they're getting each other. So do you see that turning into, or are they going to bring Mariah May and more of again, a tag team situation to build up? Or do you see Diana or do you see Thunder Rosa turning heel potentially?
Well, rumor mill says that there's a heel turn built for Diana. They may build her to turn heel because she did such great heel work in TNA for a while. So I kind of see them doing that because Tony Storm's supposed to be a heel, but she's cheered as a face. So I think they need to balance more of the heel faces in the women's division. And they've got a lot of faces, but not a lot of heels. Even someone like a Julia Hart, who's supposed to be a heel, is getting cheered. So they really need that true heel persona in the women's division. And I obviously think it's got to be Diana. They got it. She came over. She had a good start, but it's almost like she's grown stale, and they need to do something with her. And I think that's where they need to go, is to turn her heel. Kind of have a program with Thunder Rosa. I think you get down to it. I don't know if they'll do a triple threat match for the women's title. I think what you're going to see at the next pay-per-view, Double or Nothing, is, and I hate to say it because I don't want to see the women's champion in a tag match, but you may see a Tony Storm and Mariah May versus a Deonna Purrazzo and Thunder Rosa match where Deonna finally turns heel or something like that. I mean, you've got weeks to build it up because Double or Nothing, I believe, is May. I don't want to get the date wrong. I'm trying to remember when Double or Nothing is. It's in May. So, but they've got weeks to build it now, to build from this pay-per-view. So they got weeks to build it so they can continue the tension, or they could be AEW and just on a dime, on a dynamite, just have, Deonna just drop Thunder Rosa for no reason. But you could see a three-way at Double or Nothing for the title between these three women. Maybe there you have someone return after Tony Storm beats both women, because there's that story where she only beat Deonna once and she's only beat Thunder once, and both these women hate or have tension between each other. So you turn Deonna heel, so now you've got a pure heel, pure face, and then Tony Storm, who's supposed to be the heel but is a face, so she's in between her in this three-way match. And Deonna and Thunder are so distracted in triple threat that Tony wins again, and then you have someone appear, whether it's a Britt Baker or Jamie Hayter or maybe a Saraya. We haven't seen her in a while. She's been kind of downgraded. Collision between her and her brother feuding with, Cool Hand Luke. But now that, Ruby and Cool Hand are probably going to get some time away, they're having a baby.
Is that real?
Yeah, that's real. Yeah, no, they're a couple. They've been together since, I want to say, October or November of last year. They're a real couple.
Really?
So, yeah,
I wasn't sure. I wasn't really sure. And then I was like, okay.
You're not the only one. A lot of people thought it was storyline. I'm like, no, it's real. They're a real couple. Like, they just integrated everything into realism now. So they're dating for real. So you're not the first one.
Interesting. Before we sign off for this week, I'm actually excited. And one of the matches we didn't really talk about from Dynasty was a trios match. You had the House of Black, versus Adam Copeland and Eddie Kingston and
Mark Briscoe.
Briscoe. Yeah. So we didn't really talk about this one. I guess it was I didn't see much of this one actually, but what I did see, I think what came out of it was a potential new kind of feud between Adam Copeland and Malachi Black with the getting sprayed with the mist in the eyes. So I know we kind of mentioned that one as a potential good feud, and is that a feud that you'd be looking forward to?
Yes. I actually enjoyed this trio match. I think the stereo spears are a really cool point in the match. I think every time I watch Brody King wrestle, I'm just always enthralled by him. Maybe just because I like how the big man moves. I just love it. But yeah, I think I love the feud and the fact that it was Malachi that pinned Copeland in that match and got the win. And I know I mentioned it last week that the champions are going to win because they want everybody to be happy that the champions win. But
Yes,
my opinion, last week I said I would love to see House of Black pull the win out, and I still stood by that. I was like, I still want House of Black to win. So when they won, while I was watching in my chair, I jumped up. I was happy. I was like, yes, some momentum for them. And Malachi pinned a champion, so now he's set in a feud. And I know Connor had mentioned that. Connor had mentioned it too. That he's like, I just don't want Malachi pinning Copeland. Because now that if he pins Copeland in a trios match, he's going to get pinned by Copeland in a singles match. And yes. I said it because he said that on the live reaction. And I had commented, said, Connor, not necessarily. They could always pull the rug from under our feet and give Malachi Black a solid run with the TNT title. Remember what we said, this whole return to this thing for AEW for Adam Copeland was to reunite with Christian. What better way to do that than have Christian show up and kind of distract Copeland enough to where he loses his focus on Malachi and Malachi pins Copeland for the TNT title. And now Copeland and Christian have a little sit down, talk together, and basically say, let's put the past behind us. Let's run it back one more time. There's another way you can get them back as one more run as a tag team. You know, so now you have Malachi, who's got a singles title, and, you know, Julia has just lost hers. So you got, obviously, you should put more gold back on House of Black. So who better than its leader, you know, who hasn't had a singles title run yet in AEW? Let him run with it and everything like that. Let him be almost like, I want to say like the Damian Priest, you know, like Judgment Day. He's the only one that's got gold in it now. You know, have Malachi be like that with the House of Black and make these guys work harder to get some belts. You know, I said Buddy and Brody would be excellent tag team champions, and just have all three of them have titles, you know, on their own. You know, Malachi with the TNT and then Brody and Buddy with the tags. Like that would be solid. Like there's that one picture of Julia Hart holding the trios titles in her mask with them behind her. That picture was so awesome. I want to see that again with those three guys holding the TNT title and the tag titles. So I do think this is a great feud to go with. Both guys are way over with the crowd. I think it would be a solid singles match. If you watch that match, you heard the crowd get heated when these two were standing across from each other in the ring. They wanted to see it. They want to see this singles match. And after this trios match, they're finally going to get it, and it's going to happen at Double or Nothing.
No, I agree. I think it'd be great, and I totally agree with you that I'd love to see Buddy and Brody with the tag belts, and I do like the Julia Hart. You know, would be coming down and part of almost like playing a bit of a managerial role with those guys as well. Just like I like how when I love when Brody comes out and accompanies Julia Hart when she wrestles. And I don't know if you saw they were showing clips of reactions afterward, and I love that they showed the crying Julia Hart was crying, and they just show Brody kind of come into the picture on the side and puts his hand on her shoulder, and he says it's time to rebuild, right? So I love that, and they just go into the night. I was like, I love it. I listen to his voice. I love the things they say. You know what I mean? It gets you excited. You're like, yes, you know, is it time for a different version of Julia Hart now? More sadistic. You know, it's a good time to change, right? She was crying, which is, you know, she's sitting there and almost like in defeat and self-pity. No, that's not what we do. We rebuild now, right? So that'll be exciting to see what they have. So I think, you know, I know we're big fans of the House of Black, and I think there's a lot of potential there. So I'm just like you, really interested to see what happens. Really give these guys a good run, I think, and the crowd, you know, loves these guys, right? So I think again, these guys are going to have a hard time. You know, the way if they go on a run, they're going to, again, other guys are going to be tough to be heels when they're going to be cheered because people will buy into it, right? I think there's part of a lot of people want them to succeed and just can't wait for them. And then probably the reaction of the crowd live when they won were like, oh my God, they actually beat 3 champions. Like again, we said the same thing. We were in agreement last week saying like, oh, we'd love to see House of Black win this, but just don't see it happening. Again, I've always said, tag matches like this is the best way to have a champion pin because again, it doesn't affect their singles record and it doesn't affect they don't lose their title, and it's a great way to like that shock and awe, like, oh my God, this guy actually pinned them, right? So it helps advance the storylines as well because now you're investing in a match where people are like, ooh, well, he did pin him, so you never know, and it's more of a balanced match, right? It's not just a one-sided. So really interesting to see what's going to happen, and we'll be able to, I guess, see more of our predictions and interesting where they're going to be going with some of these storylines tomorrow night on Dynamite. But Adam, you know what? I think we've come to our time for this week. Again, I know we could talk wrestling for another 3 hours if we had to. I know there's no doubt, and I always enjoy my time with you. So thank you again for coming on and joining me on All Elite Zone. For another week. I don't know. I don't know if you're even getting. Have you wrestled out yet? Or are you still?
No. You know what? And then I watched Raw on Monday. I missed the first hour, but I watched Raw on Monday. It was decent. It wasn't the best one, but I watched it. It's just an exciting time for pro wrestling. Obviously Saturday you had Matt Hardy show up, TNA, very exciting, and now you got him and Nick Namath over there, and Ash by Elegance, or AE, also formerly known as Dana Brooks. So you got some good stuff going in TNA. Obviously, you got some news coming out that New Japan now it's Stardom. Stardom is now owned by New Japan Pro Wrestling. Basically, bought the contractual stuff of Stardom. I just read that today. So a lot of exciting times. But yeah, I always enjoy my time on here on this show and having the Matt and Adam show. It's always great talking wrestling with you, and and always having people on here watching, viewing, and all the comments and everything like that. So again, on behalf of Matt, I thank all of you guys. And we are on all the socials. We're on YouTube. We're on Twitch. We're on Spotify. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, tell your friends about us. We got reactions every week, from Dynamite to Rampage to Collision to even the pay-per-views. We got great interviews. Our most recent one was with the Von Erich boys, Kevin Von Erich's sons. We just had them. We are working towards a couple more interviews coming up. So stick around. We'll have a lot of that posted and everything like that. And as always, it's always fun coming on Tuesday nights with Matt.
It's great, man. And you've got your show you'll be doing Thursday. And any features, especially any special features for this week on your show?
I'm still working up the kinks for it. I haven't. I'll probably have it set by tomorrow. I have a couple of ideas. Mostly, it's the next couple of weeks is going to be a lot of focus on the state of certain aspects of pro wrestling. So I know, last week we did the state of AEW pro wrestling. The week before that, we did the assessment of Tony Khan. And then this week I'm looking at we just mentioned it, women's wrestling. So kind of the state of the women's division in pro wrestling and all that stuff is kind of there. And I kind of want to tweak about booking, basically from the history of women's wrestling. So, I mean, that's kind of an idea I'm going on for Thursday.
Well, it sounds good. Sounds good. And I'm sure it's a great show as always. I know you put a lot of work into your show. And no, it's great. So, again, for us, thank you all for tuning in. And just like Adam said, please like and subscribe and tell all your friends and family. And we always appreciate it. And that'll be us for another week. And enjoy your week. And we'll be back here next Tuesday night, as we always are on YouTube. And thanks again. Looking forward to it. Cheers.
Hey, guys.